Hello and welcome to this fifth video in the PHP e-commerce series. We're working on Shanta's Boutique, and in this video we're going to connect to our database and we're going to dynamically generate our menu. Right now we have only one menu item with some sub categories here, and up until this point our website has been completely hard-coded or static, and that is about to change in the next few minutes. So let's get started. You got to have your server running, so if you don't have it running, go ahead and run this command here. Once you have it running, let's go ahead and connect to our database. So let's create a new folder in our root directory here, and I'm going to call this core. You could call it core or system or whatever you want, but this is where we're going to keep our system files and our core files. So inside of here I'm going to create one more file, and I'm going to call this init.php, short for initialization. And we're only going to need this file and our index file, and in our includes we will need our navigation file. Okay, so let's connect to the database. In order to connect to the database, we're going to open our PHP tags, and then we're going to create a variable called db. And then we're going to use a pre-built function in PHP called MySQLI connect, and this gets 4 parameters. So let's go ahead and set those up. 4 parameters, and the first parameter it expects is our host. Now on our local machines we're going to use 127.0.0.1. It may be different on if you're doing this on a live server. You'll need to get those database connection settings from your host provider that's hosting your database. But for us on your local machine, if you're using examp, 127.0.0.1 is what you want to use. And then the next parameter it expects in our argument here is our username for our database, and again that's just going to be root. And then it's going to want a password, but we don't have a password set up on our local machine. If you've set one up, you'll need to enter that there, but I have not set one up for my local machine. And the last parameter it expects is what database is it connecting to. For me it was tutorial. That's the database that we created. So let's go ahead and look in our localhost here. Go to localhost/phpmyadmin. And you can see all your databases here. We're going to be working with tutorial, and we set this up in a previous video. So we don't have anything in our database. We're going to change that, but we're just going to make sure we get our connection going. So let's go back to our file here. Now if this connection works, we'll be able to use this DB object here throughout our app on any of our pages that we've included this init.php on. So anytime we're going to connect to our database on a page, we're going to include this at the top of the page, and then that database object will be available to us. The next thing we want to do is, if there are errors, I want to print those out to the screen and kill the application, because if we need connection to the database and it fails, we don't want the application to continue to run. So let's go ahead and do that, and we're going to create a simple if statement here. So this is how you create an if statement in PHP. That's the bare bones of it, and then inside the parentheses it is expecting, like, what you're checking is the condition. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if MySQLI connect error no, and this is a function. So if this returns true, it's going to do something in here. If it doesn't return true, it's not going to do anything. So if basically this is going to check if there's a connection error, the last connection error thrown. If there is a connection error, what we want to do is we want to echo something out. Now echo is how you print to the screen, so we're going to type something in here, and we're going to put database connection failed with following errors. I'm going to put a space, and then outside of our string here I want to concatenate on one more function, and that is MySQLI connect underscore error. And then the next thing we want to do underneath our echo statement is we want to do one more function called die. And die will just kill the page. So it's all in this if statement. If this connects fine, it's going to connect to the database and it'll skip all of this and continue on the page. If it tries to connect to the database and there's an error, it's going to echo database connection failed with following errors, and it's going to print the database connection error right after there, and then it'll jump down to the next line here and it will kill the page. So let's go ahead and look at that. If we go to our browser and we go to localhost/tutorial or wherever your project is saved and refresh, if nothing happens, that probably means you're connected to your database, which is a good thing. But let's go ahead and break that on purpose to see what happens. If I go ahead and change this instead of 127 to 198 and save it and go back here and hit refresh, nothing happens. Why is that? Oh, I've made a silly mistake here. Sorry about that. I'll try to cut that out of the video. But what we haven't done is included this on our page. So what we need to do is the top of our index page, above our other includes, we're going to do, actually it'd be pretty wise to do a require once, okay, and we're going to do core/init.php, save that out, refresh the page, and now we got our error. First we get a PHP warning. If we have warnings turned off, like on a live server, you wouldn't see this. So what we did with our echo would show up because it's an echo. And so what it does is prints what we told it to print, and then it prints the actual error, which is the same as you see in the warning here. But that was that MySQLI connect error function, return this right here. And then it dropped down and it killed the page, so you don't see anything. So let's go back now and let's correct our error, save it and refresh, and now our page is live, it's connected, and we don't have any errors. So now we are connected to the database, and I apologize for forgetting to include that. It's very tired, it's been a long weekend. Alright, so here's what we're going to do next. We're going to put some into our categories. We're going to go ahead and put some categories in. So go ahead and go into your table categories here and hit insert. And we're not going to put anything in the ID, but in the category, let's put in men, and we're going to leave parent at 0. Turn ignore off for the next one. We're going to go ahead and enter 2 here. And we'll do women for the next one. What we're doing right now is our top level menu items, and the parent is always going to be 0 for our top levels. So I hit go, and that'll add those 2. So now if I hit browse, you can see I have 2 entries in my database, men and women. So here's the auto increment that we talked about with the 1 and 2. I didn't have to enter that. So let's go ahead and add 2 more. Let's add boys and girls. Make sure I turn ignore off right there and hit go. So now if I browse that, we have 4 entries, and these are going to be our top level menu items. Let's go ahead and add a few more here, and let's do, well, first of all, let's go back. We're going to add some underneath men. So what we need to do is tell it that the parent is equal to 1, because the ID of men is 1. And later we're going to do this, graphically for our users so they don't have to look in a database, but for now we can just add it as 1. So anything that we add, a category that we add with a parent of 1 is going to be a subcategory of men. So in order to do that, hit insert, and let's just do shirts. We need to change parent to 1. Turn ignore off for the second one, and we'll do pants. It's parent of 1, hit go. And let's insert 2 more. Shoes and accessories. Hit go. And let's add 4 for the women, and we won't add any for the children right now. So that for women, the ID was 2. So we need to add the parent for our subcategories as 2. So hit insert, and again let's do shirts. Let's do pants. Let's add 2 more, and we'll do shoes and dresses. Okay. And actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and add just 2 each for the boys and girls so that we won't have any empty menu items. So let's go ahead and hit insert. And this one was for boys, and that parent was number 3. We can look that up if we want. So here's boys, and we're looking for ID of 3 here. So insert. And for boys, we're just going to say shirts. Give it a parent ID of 3. And we'll do pants. And later we'll add some more when we build our back end for our client. Oh, that needs to be 3. There you go. And let's add 2 more. We'll be done adding things to our database. So let's do, for the girls, we want to make it obvious. So let's just do dresses. And that was the ID 4 for the parent. And shoes. And we'll hit go. So now let's browse our database, and we can see all the categories that we've added. Now notice, I have pants in multiple places, and we could do something to change that, but I think keeping them separate like that and just giving them a unique ID is going to help us in the long run. That's just the way, in my mind, this application works. You may choose to do something totally different, and that's fine. I don't want anybody giving me comments saying I'm stupid or whatever. This is just how it works in my mind, and I'm sure there are more efficient ways to do this, but this is how I'm doing it, and it's going to work just fine. So let's go ahead now, and instead of this being static, let's dynamically create all of our menu items from our database categories here. So there's going to be a menu item for each one of these. So back in our navigation.php file, what we need to do is at the top of the page, let's go ahead and we are going to open PHP tags, and then let's make an SQL variable, and we're going to write a little SQL statement here, and then we're going to do select star, which means select all, from. Notice that my keywords here, and I don't know if that's the right word for these, but these are all caps. That's just the convention for a database SQL statement. So select all from, and then in lowercase we're going to put what table we're selected from. Well, that table was categories. So select all from categories, and right now we only want to get our parent categories. So what we can do is do a check, and the way we do that is we say select all from categories where, and then in lowercase I'm going to say where parent equals 0. So now let's just really quick go back and look at our database here. So it's going to return everything from categories, which is the table we're in here, where parent is equal to 0. So it should return these 4 items, and that's our parent items. So let's go back here, and we'll need a semicolon here to end that line. The next thing we want to do is we need to create a variable, and I'm going to call this how about p results. Okay, you know what, we'll just call p query for parent query, however you want to. I'm horrible with naming conventions, so if you have better names, please use them. P query, and what we're going to do here is we're going to use our database object, okay, and we're going to make a little arrow, which is we're calling a method of that object. So what we want to do is query. We're going to run the query method, and we're going to use SQL as our argument. So what it's going to do is it's going to use our database object, and it's going to run a method of query, and it's going to run our SQL statement here. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is close our PHP tags. Okay. And then down here, we're going to create a loop, and we're going to loop through each one of these. And so that's not difficult to do, but we need to find the correct place to loop. And where we want to loop is after this brand. We don't want it to, for every entry, say Shanta's Boutique again, right? So then we got an unordered list. Well, right here inside this unordered list, we want a list item for each parent. So we're going to open our PHP tags here, and we're going to do a while loop, and we're going to say while, and let's just go ahead and put parent, we're going to do this all in one line, while a parent is a variable equals, and then what we're going to do is say pquery. Alright, so now pquery is an object because we made it right here. So pquery, and we're going to do a function called MySQLI underscore fetch a sock, and what that's going to do is it's going to do a fetch associative array. So it's going to take this and make it an associative array and store it in parent. So that's kind of hard to explain, but just watch and you'll get it. So what we need to loop then is everything down past this list item. So right here we need to end our loop, and so in order to do that, I'm going to open PHP tags, and then I'm going to say end while semicolon, and then our while starts right here, and it loops through each one of these. So for every parent, it's going to go through this loop 4 times because we have 4 entries in our table where parent equals 0. So it's going to loop through all this 4 times. So in order to see if that's working, we can just save it out. And let's go ahead and look here and refresh our page. Oh, call to undefined method MySQL result fetch. What did I do wrong here? Okay. Alright. So actually, I found the error and I was mistaken on the syntax of that, which is embarrassing, but I usually use PDO, but for this, which is a different syntax for our database connection, but we're going to use MySQLI, so I just need to get in my head the syntax of that. So MySQLI underscore fetch underscore assoc, and then inside of that we pass it the pquery object. So now if I save that out and refresh, I have this repeated 4 times. Now that loop is working, but we need to replace what it actually says with what's in our database. Okay, so that is working, but it's just literally looping all of these 4 times. Okay, and that's not what we want. We'll say here, I'm just going to put menu items. So what are we going to do now is we're actually going to store the ID of the parent into a variable. So what I want to do now is actually create a variable, and I'm just going to call it parent. Actually, I need to open PHP tags. So open PHP tags, and then we're going to do parent ID equals, and then what we have now, because of our while loop, is we have an associative array stored to parent. Okay, and each one of these iterations through the loop is going to store the next data row into that array. So what we have now is an associative array, so we just enter ID just like that. And the reason we do this is because it's being stored right here, and the ID key is coming from our database right here in the ID. So each time it goes through, it's going to go through the first loop, and it's going to say, well, min has a parent of 0, and then it's going to store, and the next thing it's going to do is store that ID here with this. That was a horrible explanation. but hopefully you get it. So once that's stored, I'm going to run another SQL statement. Okay. Well, before we do that, let's just get some gratification from what we've already done. So over here where it says min, we need to close our PHP tags first of all, and then right here where it says min, we want to make that dynamic, not static. So let's just remove that and open our PHP, and we're going to echo, and now we have parent, and as a key we're going to say category, because that's what it is in our database. Okay, so now I close the PHP tags, so now we're just echoing parent here. If we look at our database, category name right here is where I'm getting that. So parent is coming in right here, and then we have an associative array, so I can just call its key, which is category. So I'm going to save that, and now our menu, our main menu items should be, men, women, boys, girls. So now that only thing we need to do, because now we still have these that are statically generated, we need to pull our subcategories in. And that's going to be easy because we've already stored the ID of our parent. Okay, so now we just need to do one more state query to our database and then do another loop. So underneath here where we've stored this, let's just go ahead and create, and let's just clean up our code a little bit here. Alright, so here I want to create another SQL statement, so I'm going to call it SQL2, and I'm going to make that equal to select all from categories where parent is equal to, and then we need to do single quotes here, and then we're going to say parent ID. So what that's going to do is it's going to select everything in our categories table where the parent is equal to parent ID. Now parent ID is being set right here, so when it goes through the loop and it's going through the min, parent ID will equal 1, and then it's going to go through and do another statement, and it's going to get everything from the categories table where parent is equal to 1. Okay? Then the last thing you actually need to do is actually run the query. So I'm just going to call this C query for child query, and all we need to do is use our database object query, and then we need to pass in SQL2, and that's all we need to do here. But down here now, since we have this C query, we need to do another while. So what I want to do now is, these are our list items inside of this unordered list. These are our subcategories. So I only want to keep one of those, okay? And the reason I'm only keeping one is because we're going to do a loop for each one. So here right above that, I'm going to open PHP tags, and I'm going to say while. Okay? So while child equals MySQLI underscore fetch for associative array, so fetch an associative array, and I'm going to pass it in C query. Now outside of here, we're just going to do a colon, and then we're going to close our PHP tags, and then right here after our list item, which is what we're looping through, we're going to open PHP tags, and we're say end while, and then it gets a semicolon. So what's happening here is it's running this while, and then within this is the open and close of while here. So within this, it's going to run every single iteration, and it's going to print this to the screen. Now we don't want it to say shirts every time, so what we need it to say is what's in the database. So we're going to open PHP tags, and we're going to echo child category. Okay, and that's it. That'll work, and each one of our categories here will show up in the proper place on the menu. So let's just refresh and see if I'm right. So, oh, I got something wrong. Expects one parameter. Oh, okay. So I did that double equal sign there, and that's what you would do if you're running an if statement. But you don't do that with SQL, you just do an equals. So that was just a stupid mistake there. So if I refresh now we see that men have these four, women have shirts, pants, shoes, and dresses. Boys just have two, shirts and pants, and girls have dresses and shoes. So we go back now, and we can see here with these parent IDs how these are matching up with 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are our main 4 categories here, and then our subcategories have a parent. So that's kind of how we're going to do this. So now we actually have a dynamic menu. So if I were to add one more, let's just add shirt, pants, shoes, accessories. Let's add accessories to women and see if this works. So I want to insert accessories, and women ID was 2, so hit go. And if I refresh the page now, women should have one additional, yep, shirts, pants, shoes, dresses, accessories. So later what we're going to build on the back end is the ability for the shop owner who owns the shop to graphically add categories and choose a parent, and then it will show up in the menu items. So anyhow, congratulations if you've sat through this. Your site is now dynamic instead of static, and it's connecting to the database and dynamically creating your menus and categories. In the next video, we're going to add our products, and we're going to start creating our products in the database and putting them on here dynamically instead of statically. So can't wait to see you in the next video, and have a great day.